Hey folks, welcome to Moonshift Audio. In this video I'm going to be looking at some classic retro tom sounds, where they come from, how to use them, and taking a look at how you can use hardware to get a bit of extra control when you're choosing your toms. I'll also be sharing a free pack of Roland 808 tom sounds that I recorded here in the studio. Let's get stuck in. Okay, so here we are in Cubase, and I've got here a drums, bass and synth loop, which is a continuation of the little jam I was working on with the 80s drums a couple of weeks back. It sounds like this. So we're kind of going for a sort of 80s power pop kind of vibe with this. Now I've got two instances of battery here, and you can see if I load up the first one, I've got a load of samples from the Linn drum, vintage drum machine. I got all these samples from the Samples from Mars sample packs. That's an excellent resource. They've got basically every classic drum machine you could possibly think of, all sampled at very high quality, and they regularly go on sale. I think I got the entire pack for like £50 or something like that, which is pretty great. This isn't all of the Linn drum samples, this is just a few that I chose to pull out. And you can hear that's just a selection of different pitches that have been recorded there. And that's to simulate the different size toms that you might find on a drum kit. So if I play the pattern that I've programmed with these, you can hear it's just a nice way to add a bit of sort of drama and energy to a production. Processing wise, I've got a few things going on. I'll turn off all of these effects and I'll bring them in one at a time so we can hear what each one's doing. So this is the raw drums. I've got a decapitator, just adding some harmonics and helping them to cut through the mix a bit more. That's with and without. I've got a compressor, Pro C2, that's with. You can hear it's just filling out the tails and adding a little bit more punch. I've got a drum compression attack time video, which you can check out in my other videos, where I show you how I might go about setting the attack time for a drum like that. And lastly, I've got a Pro Q3, rolling off some of the lows, putting a bit of body in, scooping out some mud and adding some presence. So if I play this without and with, particularly this presence, if I turn that off, just getting a bit more attack, a bit more click on those toms, it really helps to cut through in the mix. So I'll bring the other instruments back in. And now I'll turn on the effects. Just having to give them that bit of punch and drama. But the real star of the show is reverb when it comes to these kind of 80s power pop toms. Now I've got a reverb bus here, and I'm using the RMX 16 on the same patch that I showed in the 80s drums video. That's free to download, and this is the UAD RMX 16 digital reverb unit. I'll turn off the decap and the EQ so you can hear what a difference it makes just putting this reverb in. So with just the toms playing, I'm going to play this without the reverb. And now with. Just got that lovely gritty space around them. And in the mix, really helps it fit with those other drums. I'm putting a decap on that reverb, just not very much at all, just a little bit of drive, and that's a way of just getting even more energy out of it. And without. With again. Just bringing out the grit in that short reverb tail. And I'm just rolling off the low end so we don't muddy up the mix too much with a Pro Q3. So that's the Linn drum. Now I want to look at my personal favourite, which is the Oberheim DMX. I've used the exact same pattern of notes, but obviously I've got different drums in here. Again, these are from the samples from Mars packs, excellent packs. I've turned off the reverb and the effects so you can hear these drums just as they come. Now, one thing I'm going to do here is actually pan out a couple of these drums just to give it a little bit more drama when they play in. I haven't used all of the drums, I've only used 3, so I'm going to pan the first one left, the middle one I'll leave central, and the last one I've panned to the right. So you get this nice movement across the soundstage. I've processed these drums in almost the same way. We've got a decap, just helping that cut through a little bit more, a Pro C, emphasizing the transient a little bit and adding some body, and then with the Pro Q3, I've put quite a lot of high end in. You can see I've removed some of the mud, but what you should really hear is the click and the attack coming through on these toms now. Let's hear this in the mix. Absolute classic, that tom sound. And if we bring in the reverb, they're sending to the same reverb as the Linn drums were. Instant 80s drama. And just to solo them once more, they don't sound particularly nice, those drums, but I think what is special about them is the way that they work in the mix. All that roughness is kind of lost and you're just left with the raw 80s power. So that was a little look at how you can get some nice 80s style drama from the Oberheim DMX and Linn drum toms. But what about some more subtle effects? For that you might do well to look at the Roland drum machines. Okay, so this example is a little section from the Dawn FM weekend inspired production example that I did for one of my first videos. It sounds like this. Every synth sound in this track was made in Serum using sounds from my free Retro Serum presets pack. You can download that for free. There's a link down below in the description. But in this video, I'm focusing on the drums. So let's have a quick look at what I've got in the battery. The entire kit is basically made up of sounds from various Roland drum machines. We got the kicks from the 707 and 808, snare from an 808 and a 909, claps from an 808 and a 707, and the hi-hats are from 606, apart from the open hat, which is an 808. Then we got the toms, which I took from an 808. Now, all of these sounds are, again, from the samples from Mars packs, which I can't recommend enough. I'm going to mute the toms, and we can listen to this groove, which is backing what would be the verse. It's pretty minimal. We're leaving a lot of space for where there would be a lead vocal here. But there's a nice way of adding just a little bit of interest. And that is, in this case, by adding some toms. Super simple. Literally just an offbeat, slightly staccato pattern. I'm actually doing very little processing here. A Pro Q just to kind of tame some of the low end, didn't want them muddying up the mix, and a decap. We can hear this without. Can hear it's just a little bit too much low end energy there. But that helps to tame that. And then just a little bit of drive from decap, giving him that presence just to be a little bit more there. These toms are used a lot in techno, house, dance music, electro, and I've heard people doing all sorts of really clever things with them. Because they're tunable on the drum machine, you can almost make them melodic, you can retune them as they're playing. If you distort them heavily, they can be really powerful. If you tune the low tom down really low, it can become like a bass element, which is great for a kind of offbeat bass if you're doing a forward to the floor kind of groove. They're really, really powerful, and I think sometimes overlooked, so it's nice to shine a little bit of a light on them today. So that's the 808 toms, all taken from sample packs. But what about hardware? Here's a little look at what you can do with an actual drum machine, in this case my Roland TR-8S. Okay, so here are the 3 toms. And you can see that with each one we get 3 controls. We get tune, decay, and a third control, which in this case is for what's called colour. So if I play the low tom, we can tune that, and we can tune all 3 of the toms. Now that's really useful if you want to tune them to fit the pitch of your track, or if you're trying to find a specific low frequency and you want to use that low tom as a kind of bass instrument. Decay is fairly self-explanatory, you've just got the length of the notes. So really muted to pretty long. And the last control that you get on these 808s is quite an interesting one. It's called colour, and it adds a sort of noise, almost like a kind of reverby, gritty kind of tone to the drums. So you can hear that here. It's just a really nice way of adding what is a slightly unusual character. It's not too clean, it sort of grunges it up a bit, and it will just keep things a little bit interesting, especially just a little bit of that mixed in. Now, seeing as how I've got this open, I'm going to take a minute and record a few samples of my own. I'll do every tom at a few different tunings and with a varying amount of the colour control, and I'll make that available for you guys to download for free. In the meantime, I'm going to jump back into Cubase and we can take a look at another way of using these drums. Okay, so now let's take a quick look at how, with that kind of extra control from the hardware, we can build a slightly more complex pattern to support a different drum loop. This is a track I produced last year, and I'm just going to look at an instrumental section coming out of one of the choruses. I'm just going to bring in the tom pattern now. You can hear how it's quite subtle, but it just adds a little bit of interest and it's filling out some of that low end, which is really nice. I'll solo the toms so you can hear what's going on there. Again, I've processed them quite simply, scooping out the lows and the low mids and a little bit of decap just to help them cut through the mix a bit more. Let's have a listen to how that interacts with the rest of the drums, particularly the kick. It's just nice to have these little things poking up every now and then, just to keep things interesting. You can see that the toms aren't present in the section to the left or to the right, so it's just for this kind of like short section of the second verse. They're also there in the first verse. But by bringing them in and out, it's just one other way to add. You can almost just call it a bit of ear candy, but it all helps to give a production just one more little lift. That's it for this week. If you found this video useful, please do like and subscribe for more tips, tricks, resources and downloads from me at Moonshift Audio. Till next time.